Ben Rivers wasn't looking for trouble when he bought the house on Crestwood Lane. He wanted peace. Quiet mornings with black coffee on the porch, weekend barbecues, maybe some friendly waves from neighbors. What he got instead was Karen. Walbridge. Karen was the kind of neighbor who introduced herself with a typed flyer, a firm handshake, and a list of community rules longer than a CVS receipt. She wasn't just on the HOA board, she was the HOA board, self-appointed, deeply involved, and dangerously bored. It was a Thursday afternoon in early spring when Ben heard the knock. He opened the door to find Karen standing there, flanked by two women in matching pink shirts that read Crestwood Events Committee. Karen launched into her pitch like a politician. You simply must come to our annual Pink and Pearls poolside social this Saturday. It's a celebration of unity, style, and, well, the best the HOA has to offer. Attendance isn't technically mandatory, but it's strongly encouraged. Ben smiled politely. Thanks for the invite, but I've got family plans. My niece is turning 7, and we're heading to the aquarium. Karen's smile didn't flinch, but something changed in her eyes. Oh, she said sweetly, family is important, but so is showing your face in the community. Especially when you're new. People notice things, Ben, he shrugged. I'm sure they'll survive without me for a day. He closed the door gently. The next morning, there was a violation notice on his mailbox, code 4.3.1, overgrown grass border. His lawn was mowed 2 days prior. He tossed the letter in the trash. One bad citation. Whatever. Probably a coincidence. But the next day, another appeared, code 2.7, 8 improper garbage bin placement. Then another non-harmonized mailbox paint color. Ben blinked at that one. His mailbox came with the house. At first it was funny. Then it wasn't, because each letter came with a $25 fine. And Karen, she was always there, pruning her roses, inspecting her clipboards, waving with a smile that said, "This is your first lesson." Ben talked to his neighbor Julius, a retired firefighter who'd been living there for years. Julius just chuckled. Karen throws that party every year, thinks it makes her queen. You don't show up, she goes nuclear. Happened to a guy 2 houses down last year, ended up getting cited for a Ben raised an eyebrow. That's a thing. Oh yeah. Here, anything's a violation if Karen says it is. By the end of the week, Ben had 5 violation letters, each one a little more absurd than the last. He paid none of them out of principal. But he noticed something else. Karen was watching him. Not just from across the street. There was a newly installed camera on her front porch, angled directly at his driveway. He tested it by walking back and forth with a soda can in hand. Sure enough, the next morning he got a letter. Suspicious activity, open container in public view. The war had started. And Ben, despite his calm nature, wasn't about to lose to someone who wore a whistle as jewelry. Because this wasn't just about a party. Anymore. Karen had declared him an enemy of the HOA, and now he was about to fight fire with strategy. The question was, how deep did Karen's claws go into this neighborhood? And what secrets were hiding behind those perfect hedges and pastel flyers? This wasn't just Crestwood Lane, it was a suburban battlefield, and Ben had just become public enemy number 1. Stay tuned for part 2, where Ben discovers just how far Karen is willing to go to make him bend, and how one wrong move puts his entire property at risk. If you've ever had a neighbor who thought they ran the block, you won't want to miss what's coming next. By Monday, Ben Rivers knew 2 things for certain. 1. Crestwood Lane was not the peaceful oasis advertised in the real estate brochure. And 2. Karen Walbridge did not tolerate rejection, especially when it threatened her party turnout stats. The HOA violations kept showing up like junk mail from a cursed mailbox. His trash cans were now too close to the curb. His porch light was too bright. His fence gate squeaked unreasonably. Ben wasn't new to weirdness. He'd spent 6 months traveling the country in an old camper, couchsurf, and dodging sketchy landlords. But this was next-level petty warfare dressed up as bureaucracy. On Tuesday morning, he noticed a strange vehicle parked across the street. A white golf cart with flashing yellow lights and a decal that read, Crestwood Compliance Patrol. Inside sat Karen, clipboard in hand, sunglasses on, her mouth moving into a Bluetooth headset like a mall cop on caffeine. She stared directly at Ben's house. When he stepped onto his porch, she spoke into the mic. Subject has exited front door. Repeat, subject is on porch. Ben laughed out loud. Is this a movie? Julius from next door wandered over. coffee in hand. Welcome to HOA surveillance. She started that patrol unit 2 years ago when someone painted their shutters lime green. Ben squinted. You're joking. Nope. She made her husband buy the golf cart, then divorced him 3 months later and kept it in the settlement. As absurd as it was, the fines were adding up fast, and Karen had the backing of at least 3 board members, her so-called pink circle, who rubber-stamped her complaints without question. They weren't just enforcing policy, they were enforcing control. Then things got personal. Ben came home Wednesday evening to find a bright yellow warning sticker slapped across his front window, pending non-compliance review, HOA, formal investigation in progress. Attached was a citation alleging negligence in landscape aesthetics and possible structural encroachment. Structural encroachment. Ben stared at the letter. According to Karen, his deck might be an inch too close to the rear setback line. He nearly laughed again, then he realized the implication. If Karen could get that infraction validated, it could cost him thousands in mandatory reconfiguration, or worse, a partial teardown. She wasn't just playing neighborhood politics anymore. She was trying to break him, and that's when Ben stopped reacting and started investigating. That night, he fired up his old college laptop, pulled up the HOA's website, and downloaded their 54-page bylaws document. Every clause, every subclause, every outdated rule scribbled in legalese. The deeper he read, the more he saw the cracks. There were rules about party fund transparency, vendor oversight, board term limits, and most importantly, a stipulation that no HOA official could approve or issue more than 5 violations without independent review. Karen had issued 8. Personally, Ben's eyes narrowed. She was breaking her own rules. By Thursday, he wasn't just cataloging violations, he was building a case. That morning, Karen rang his doorbell unannounced, her face smug. Well, I just wanted to offer a little grace before we proceed further, she said, arms crossed. I'm willing to forgive all your infractions if you simply write a letter of apology to the board and agree to attend the next HOA social function. It's really quite generous, considering. Ben looked at her like she was offering him a bag of snakes. So, I can buy my peace by bowing to your party. She blinked. You make it sound dramatic. No, Karen. I'm not apologizing. I'm not paying, and I'm not coming to your parties. But I am going to the next HOA board meeting. As a speaker, Karen's expression cracked for the first time. Excuse me, you heard me. I'll be submitting my complaint in accordance with Article 4, Section 12. And I'll be bringing some interesting attachments. She scoffed. You think anyone will take your side? I built this neighborhood. No, you built a fiefdom. I'm just pulling back the curtain. As she stormed away, Ben knew the real fight was just beginning. Karen hadn't counted on pushback. She thrived on silence, on compliance, on fear. But now she had something new. An opponent who read the rulebook and wasn't afraid to use it. The air was heavy with tension that Friday evening as Ben Rivers prepared his presentation for the HOA board meeting. He had organized the citations by date, documented photographic evidence of his so-called violations, and printed excerpts from the bylaws that directly contradicted Karen's actions. He even highlighted the clause about board overreach, just in case any of them had forgotten they weren't above the rules. Ben wasn't trying to be a hero. He was just tired of being treated like a trespasser on his own property. The meeting was scheduled for 6:30 p.m. in the Crestwood Community Hall, a cheerful-looking room painted pastel green, filled with folding chairs and a podium. But to Ben, it felt like stepping into enemy territory. Karen was already there. Of course, seated at the head table with her usual army of clipboard-toting loyalists. She wore a smug smile and a coral-colored blazer like she was hosting a charity gala. Instead of defending her petty dictatorship, look who finally decided to engage, she said as Ben walked in. Ben ignored her and set up his laptop. Julius gave him a subtle thumbs up from the back row. As the meeting opened, Karen took the mic first. I'd like to begin by addressing the concerning behavior of Mr. Rivers, she said, projecting her voice with rehearsed authority. Since moving in, he's received multiple compliance violations, more than any other homeowner, this quarter. Instead of taking responsibility, he has chosen to challenge the system. Now, I believe in second chances, but I also believe in protecting our community standards. Ben clenched his jaw. Karen was framing this like she was the victim, like she was protecting everyone else from him. When it was his turn, he walked calmly to the podium and connected his laptop. I'm not here to cause drama, Ben began. I'm here because this HOA has been used to target me for personal reasons. Not because I broke the rules, but because I didn't attend a party. A low ripple of chatter spread across the room. Ben clicked the remote. Slide 1. A screenshot of Karen's email inviting him to the Pink and Pearls party timestamped 2 days before the first citation. Slide 2. Photos of his yard on the day of the grass violation, neatly trimmed and in perfect condition. Slide 3. A highlighted section from the bylaws, the rule Karen broke by issuing too many citations without oversight, and then came the fourth slide. A breakdown of citation dates compared to every other homeowner on the block. Ben had 8 in 10 days. The next highest was 1. Karen's face hardened. But just when the tide began turning, she made her move. This is all very theatrical, Karen said, standing. But perhaps the board should hear what kind of neighbor Mr. Rivers really is. You see, just yesterday, we received a formal complaint from another resident, claiming he was seen throwing trash into a neighbor's yard after dark. There's even security footage. Ben's heart skipped. What? Karen held up her phone. We'll be reviewing the footage in private. But in the meantime, I move to suspend Mr. Rivers' right to vote on any HOA matters until this issue is resolved. Gasps filled the room. Ben tried to speak, but Karen cut him off. Allow for temporary suspension pending investigation. And until we get to the bottom of this dumping incident, I believe we should proceed cautiously. It was clear she'd faked a complaint. Maybe even doctored footage. A desperate play. But it worked. The board mumbled among themselves, and despite Ben's protests, the motion passed to 3-2-2. Ben was stunned. He'd come armed with facts, with proof, with the rulebook itself. But Karen, she'd come with manipulation, and right now, that was winning. He left the meeting with his presentation still glowing on the screen behind him, but no power to act, as he stepped out into the cool night air. Julius caught up. That woman's playing dirty, Julius said, and she's good at it. But she made a mistake tonight. Ben turned. What mistake? She showed you what she's willing to do. And that means you can plan for her next move. Ben stared back at the glowing windows of the community hall. Karen had pulled a fast one, but he wasn't out of options. Not yet, because if she wanted to play games with fake complaints and footage, she'd better hope her own record was squeaky clean. Ben Rivers barely slept after the HOA board meeting. His efforts, evidence, and hours of preparation had been dismantled by a single false accusation. Karen had played the board like a fiddle, swaying them with whispered lies and fabricated video. But she made one critical error. She got cocky. Ben knew she'd faked the complaint. The only question now was how far her corruption went. If she was bold enough to lie in public, what was she hiding behind the scenes? By Saturday morning, Ben was on a mission. He called Julius, who answered with a grunt. I need a favor, Ben said. You still have that old HOA binder you mentioned. Julius laughed. Oh yeah, I've got years of meeting notes, newsletters, receipts. Karen thinks she deleted the past, but I kept it in a box labeled, Do Not Incinerate. Come by in 10. Ben arrived with 2 coffees and a backpack. Julius met him in the garage and lifted a dusty blue tub from a high shelf. Inside were dozens of folders, receipts for community projects, outdated maps, and most importantly, scanned financial records going back nearly 5 years. She didn't want these files online, Julius muttered. Claimed it was for cybersecurity reasons. Truth is, digital records can be searched. Paper can be buried. Ben flipped through an envelope labeled 2022, Spring Social Budget. His eyes widened. $2,800 for table linens. $1,200 for outdoor heating rentals. There were 4 space heaters and 2 folding tables last year. Julius nodded. Karen's private party fund. Inflated invoices. One vendor was her cousin's company. Another, totally fake. I looked it up once. The address was a Pizza Hut. Ben snapped photos of everything. He wasn't just compiling a folder now, he was building a case for embezzlement. But the real bombshell came from a folded document at the bottom of the tub. A board vote from 2021, declaring Karen's term officially expired. The signature lines were filled. The date was stamped. She was supposed to step down 2 years ago. Wait, this says her tenure ended June 1, 2022. Ben said. She claimed nobody ran against her, Julius said. Then she convinced the others to extend her time for continuity. Ben's pulse quickened. Except this shows the vote to end it already passed. He stared at the paper like it was a golden ticket. Karen wasn't just issuing false citations, she was illegally acting as president of the HOA, but he knew she wouldn't go down quietly. Ben uploaded everything to a private cloud folder and began drafting a letter addressed to the entire HOA with bullet-pointed violations. Scanned receipts, and the 2021 board vote front and center. Still, he needed one more thing: confirmation that the recent complaint against him, the trash dumping video, didn't actually exist. He texted another neighbor, Rachel, a single mom who lived 2 houses down. She'd always been friendly but cautious. Karen had fined her last year for letting her daughter draw chalk art on the sidewalk. Ben typed, "Hey Rachel, did you by chance file a complaint about me this week?" Karen said someone submitted security footage, just trying to clear something up. Her reply came fast, "No way. I didn't submit anything. She asked me to sign a blank form as a witness and said it was about noise complaints. I didn't realize it had anything to do with you. Should I say something?" Ben's jaw clenched. Karen wasn't just lying. She was forging complaints. He replied quickly, "If you're willing, I'd like to include your statement in something I'm submitting to the board. This isn't just about me anymore." Rachel agreed. Now Ben had it all: motive, evidence, and witnesses. That night, he sent an email titled "Urgent Board Violations and Improper Leadership Review Request" to every HOA board member, every neighbor, and the county housing compliance office. Attached was a zip file called Crestwood Truth. The next morning, Karen's golf cart patrol didn't make its usual rounds. The clipboard was nowhere in sight, and by noon, 3 board members had responded, requesting an emergency meeting. Ben didn't smile. Not yet. Because this war was far from over. Karen might be wounded, but she still had allies. She still had pride, and worst of all, she still thought she couldn't be touched. The emergency HOA meeting was set for Sunday afternoon. Word traveled fast. Residents who hadn't attended a board meeting in years were suddenly dusting off lawn chairs and packing into the Crestwood Community Hall like it was a town hall showdown. Ben walked in with a folder under one arm and Rachel at his side. Julius nodded to him from the 3rd row. Tension hung thick in the air. The kind that made people whisper in nervous clumps and dart glances toward the woman sitting defiantly at the front of the room. Karen was already there in full command mode. Pink blazer, hair curled, and an expression like someone who'd just dared fate to blink first. The board opened the meeting by reading the accusations: misused funds, expired authority, forged complaints, and abuse of power. Karen didn't even flinch. "In case anyone's forgotten," she said as she stood, "I am acting president under special extension, per Article 3, Section 9, which allows for continuation if no opposing candidates step forward. As for the allegations, I deny every single one. These are desperate attempts by a disgruntled homeowner who refuses to follow basic community standards." Ben stood to counter. "You're right, Article 3, Section 9 allows for a temporary extension, but that clause was overridden in 2021. I have the signed board resolution right here." He held up the paper. Gasps echoed through the room. Karen blinked. "That was never filed," she snapped. "It was just discussed." "No, it was signed. By you, right here." Julius spoke up. "I remember that meeting. You said you'd step down and serve in an advisory capacity only." We all clapped. Karen flushed. "That was symbolic." Ben calmly turned to the projector. He connected his laptop and pulled up photos of the party invoices, the bogus $2,800 linens, the cousin's fake company, the vendor who apparently lived next to a taco truck, and then came Rachel's sworn statement, a brief video of her confirming that Karen had tricked her into signing a false complaint. The room went silent. Karen's mouth opened, but no sound came out, until she snapped. "This is all garbage. He's lying. They're all against me." She stormed from the front table and marched straight toward Ben. "You smug little snake," she spat. "You think you can humiliate me? In my neighborhood, I built this community. I own this board." She shoved a stack of his papers to the floor, causing the mic to screech. People gasped. One woman stood and pulled her daughter behind her. A board member stepped forward. "That's enough, Karen." But Karen wasn't done. "You want war? You think this is over? I've already filed a cease and desist against you, Ben. I'll have a restraining order by morning, and I've got connections at county compliance. You're going to regret ever stepping foot on my street." Then she stormed out, heels clacking against the tile. The silence that followed was chilling. Ben knelt to pick up his papers. Julius leaned in. "You okay?" Ben nodded. "She's unraveling. But if she really filed a restraining order, she's taking this off the HOA field now." And that's exactly what happened. On Monday, Ben received a letter from a law office, Karen C. notice, citing character defamation, incitement of community unrest, and emotional distress. It was a last-ditch effort, but it wasn't empty. Her legal language was polished. Her threats were clear. Karen wasn't just defending her pride now. She was trying to destroy Ben's credibility. But what she didn't know, what she couldn't have known, was that Ben had already contacted someone far above her. HOA Reach, the county oversight investigator for homeowner associations. Ben had submitted all the files, including the party budget abuse, the forged complaints, the expired presidency, and the community's growing list of statements. And while Karen played her legal cards, she had no idea that a formal investigation was already underway. Ben didn't celebrate. He just waited, because sometimes the most powerful move isn't retaliation, it's patience. And the more Karen fought, the deeper she dug her own grave. By Tuesday morning, the neighborhood of Crestwood Lane felt like it was holding its collective breath. Karen's outburst at the emergency HOA meeting was still echoing through group chats and driveway conversations. Some were stunned, others smug, and a few had finally started questioning whether the queen bee of their HOA might actually be a tyrant with a wine fridge and a clipboard addiction. Ben Rivers, however, wasn't celebrating. He knew something big was coming. And this time, it wasn't another pink envelope stuffed with violation codes. It was a silver Ford Taurus with a county seal on the door. At precisely 9:42 a.m., Monica Wells, a field investigator from the County Oversight Division for Residential Communities, pulled into the HOA's shared parking lot. Ben watched from his front window as she stepped out, clean blazer, notepad in hand, eyes scanning like a hawk with paperwork to file and patience to burn. She wasn't here for tea and cookies. She was here for records. By 10 a.m., she was seated in the Crestwood HOA's mini office, formerly a broom closet. Karen had renovated with budget funds and demanding full documentation of all financial expenditures, leadership changes, and official correspondence over the past 3 years. Karen wasn't there to greet her, but the acting board secretary, Jim Beckett, was, and the poor guy looked like someone had forced him to swallow a cactus. Monica's voice was clear and firm. "We've received multiple complaints of misconduct, unauthorized fines, and possible misappropriation of HOA funds. If documentation is not available, we will proceed with a forensic audit." Word spread fast. Julius texted Ben, "The county's here. She's not playing around." Karen just pulled into her driveway and slammed the car door so hard her garden gnome face planted. Ben grabbed his phone and walked outside, casually passing by the office just in time to hear Monica's voice say, "These invoices, several are from businesses that don't appear to exist." Karen barged in 5 minutes later, flustered, makeup half done, lips pursed like she'd just tasted a lemon rind. "I wasn't notified of this visit," she said coldly. "You were sent certified mail last Friday," Monica replied. 3 copies. Karen's tone dropped an octave. "Well, I wasn't expecting you so soon." "I don't wait on invitations," Monica replied. Not even looking up, Ben stopped pretending to stretch on the sidewalk and walked away before he laughed out loud. By 11:30 a.m., the HOA office was in chaos. 2 more board members arrived, visibly shaken. Karen kept trying to regain control, but Monica's presence overrode every excuse, and then it happened. A small manila folder labeled 2021 Board Restructure Void was handed over by Jim. Monica opened it, and immediately raised an eyebrow. "You wrote void over a valid board vote." Karen crossed her arms. It was a clerical error. That resolution was never meant to be filed, but it was signed by all members, including you. And there's no official override. Which means your current position, Monica looked up, is legally invalid. Karen's face froze. "But I've been acting in good faith," she said quietly. "No," Monica replied. "You've been acting without authority." That's when the first shoe dropped. Monica paused, tapped her pen, and added, "Effective immediately, you are suspended from any HOA leadership duties pending the outcome of this investigation." Karen exploded. "You can't do that. This is my neighborhood. You don't know how things work here?" But Monica was already writing a formal citation of HOA mismanagement. And just like that, Karen Walbridge was stripped of her power. Ben watched it all from a lawn chair across the street. sipping coffee like he was watching a live taping of a courtroom drama. But it wasn't over yet. That afternoon, Monica began interviewing homeowners individually and quietly. Rachel confirmed the forged complaint. Julius turned over his HOA file tub. 2 elderly neighbors admitted Karen had threatened them with fines if they didn't attend her annual party. Even the landscaper showed up with a copy of an invoice he'd been told to leave off the books. The pieces were falling fast. The image of Karen as a benevolent, organized leader had been shattered, and what stood in its place was someone far more manipulative than anyone had realized. But there was still one piece left. One thread that no one had dared to pull. Because beneath the HOA violations and fake party expenses, there was something even more serious, buried deep in the documents. A discrepancy so large, even Monica paused when she saw it. The sun was setting over Crestwood Lane, but the heat from Karen's unraveling empire was just getting started by midweek. Investigator Monica Wells had reviewed dozens of statements, scanned years' worth of receipts, and compiled a growing list of HOA irregularities. Most were laughable at first: $1,200 listed as balloon arch repair, or $800 for board member appreciation snacks. But one entry wasn't funny at all. Monica stood quietly in the community hall, her eyes narrowing as she traced the paper trail from the HOA's financial log. There it was again, a transfer of $9,237 from the Community Safety Fund to an external account labeled only as CW Enterprises. She clicked through archived files and board meeting minutes. Nowhere did CW Enterprises appear in any official vote or vendor record. It was a ghost company, or it was something worse. She checked the routing number attached to the withdrawal, sent an inquiry to the county records office. Less than 2 hours later, her phone dinged with the reply. Ben was pacing outside his house when Monica approached. "I need to show you something," she said. He followed her across the street, where Julius and Rachel were already waiting. Monica pulled up her tablet and tapped the screen. $9,237 from HOA reserves, she said. It was quietly moved 6 months ago under the guise of safety infrastructure enhancements. But this account, she turned the screen to them, was opened by someone named Caroline Walbridge. Ben blinked. Karen. Monica nodded. Her full name is Caroline Karen Walbridge. This wasn't just misuse of funds. This was direct embezzlement. Julius let out a low whistle. She stole from the safety fund that was meant for speed bumps and crosswalk lights. She took money earmarked for the community and redirected it to a shell account, Monica confirmed. And it wasn't the only one. I've flagged 2 other transactions totaling nearly $5,000. Rachel crossed her arms. All because Ben didn't go to her little party. Ben shook his head. No, that's just what made her start swinging. Monica stood tall. Tomorrow morning, I'll be filing a formal report with the county. Once it's submitted, she'll be facing civil penalties and, possibly, criminal charges. The HOA will also need to appoint interim leadership. Julius smirked. Got anyone in mind? Ben shook his head. I didn't want a job. I just wanted to live in peace. But peace was a long way off. Because while Monica prepared her final report, Karen was preparing her last desperate move. That night, a flyer was stuffed into every mailbox on the block. It was printed on glossy pink paper with gold borders and titled, "A Message from Your True Leader." The truth they don't want you to hear. It accused Ben of stalking her, accused Monica of overreach, and claimed the investigation was part of a conspiracy orchestrated by bitter neighbors and cowards. She even listed a website, www.savecrestwoodnow.org. Ben clicked it. The homepage showed a dramatic slideshow of Karen hosting past events, smiling beside residents, with captions, "Like a woman of service and falsely accused by angry outsiders." At the bottom was a donation link. "She's fundraising," Ben muttered. Julius burst out laughing. "She's going full politician." But Monica didn't laugh. She's trying to spin public opinion. And unfortunately, that's dangerous. Karen wasn't trying to save herself anymore. She was trying to rally her loyalists. And the worst part, a few residents actually bought it. Comments on the site read, "Karen has always hosted beautiful events. I don't believe she'd steal. She works too hard." This feels like a witch hunt. The truth was battling perception now. So Ben did something he hadn't done since this started. He wrote a letter not to the HOA, not to Monica but to every single neighbor. In it he laid out the facts. With calm, steady tone, he included evidence, no finger pointing, Just truth. He hand-delivered it to mailboxes and stuck one in a plastic sleeve by the bulletin board, and then he waited by the next morning. 3 more residents had come forward to Monica with stories of Karen's threats and manipulation. 5 had pulled donations from her site. 2 removed their support Karen lawn signs. The tide was turning, and Karen, she hadn't been seen all day. But word was, she'd hired a lawyer by Friday morning. The tension on Crestwood Lane felt like the moment before a thunderclap. Everyone had heard about the investigation. Everyone had seen the flyers, the website, the accusations. And now, everyone was waiting for the storm to break. At 10:15 a.m., the HOA board called an emergency vote, this time, not in the pastel-painted community hall, but at the county civic center. It was public, it was recorded, and it was packed. Ben walked in wearing a plain button-up and calm resolve. He wasn't here for vengeance, he was here for closure. Karen arrived 15 minutes late, flanked by a lawyer in a cheap gray suit and the unmistakable sound of someone who still believed they were untouchable. She wore a bright pink blazer and a pearl necklace, so large it looked like a flotation device. Her smile never touched her eyes. Monica Wells was already seated, her county badge shining under the fluorescent lights. The board opened the floor. Today's meeting, said interim chairperson Lisa Monroe, is to formally address the misconduct investigation regarding Caroline Karen Walbridge, former president of the Crestwood Lane Homeowners Association. The county's findings have been reviewed. A vote will follow. Monica stood, calm, clear, devastating. She laid out the evidence, the expired term and illegal extensions, the misused funds, the shell accounts, the forged complaint against Ben. She even produced a forensic breakdown of Karen's CW Enterprises account, proving the funds were redirected into her personal mortgage payments. Karen's lawyer stammered that the account was for reimbursement purposes and that the oversight was clerical in nature. Monica shut it down with one sentence. Then why did she label it as a security contractor account with a fake IN? Karen flinched. The vote was held. 5 board members, unanimous. Karen Walbridge was officially removed from the HOA. Permanently, cheers erupted in the gallery. Not loud, but relieved. Like the exhale after months of holding breath, Karen stood as if she were still in control. This isn't the end, she said bitterly, glaring at Ben. You think they'll trust you now? I made this neighborhood beautiful. Without me, it'll fall apart. Ben stayed seated, voice calm. Then I guess we'll find out what it's like to live without fear. That should have been the end, but then came the twist, as everyone began to file out. Monica approached Ben quietly. There's something you should know, she said. This investigation triggered a wider audit. Ben frowned. What do you mean? We found a pattern. Karen's been serving on 3 different HOA boards over the last 10 years. Crestwood is just one. There's a neighborhood 20 miles east, Garden Pines, and another called Willow Hollow. Ben blinked. She was running 3 HOAs. She wasn't just running them, Monica said. She was embezzling from all of them. Nearly $70,000 total. Ben's mouth fell open. They're pressing felony charges. The DA is involved now. It's not just about HOA rules anymore, it's about fraud, theft, and racketeering. As Karen was led away by her lawyer, unaware of what was coming, Ben couldn't help but feel something unexpected. Pity. She had built her entire identity around control, appearances, and power over a community that never truly needed her. And now it was gone. The weeks that followed brought change to Crestwood Lane. The violations stopped. The ridiculous party flyers vanished. A new board was elected, with a rule that no one could serve longer than 2 years without mandatory community review. Ben. He was voted in as the new HOA secretary, despite trying to decline the offer twice. He finally agreed on one condition: no more clipboards. Laughter filled the room. Julius donated his old HOA records to the community library. Rachel started a monthly neighborhood potluck, and this time, no one was pressured to attend. Even the lawn signs changed. Where once there were signs reading "Support Karen," now stood hand-painted boards that read simply, "Respect your neighbors, not the power." As for Karen, she was last seen leaving her house in the back of a black sedan with tinted windows, her pearls gone. Her website shut down, and her reign officially over. Ben finally got what he wanted. Not revenge, not power, peace, and all it took was saying no to a party. The end.